like to call tonight's work session, Monday, August 26th, open. Stand for the pledge.
Oh, thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Borthwick? Mr. Duffy? Mr. Martin? Present. Mr. Lush? Mr. Cantor? Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Copel?
Here.
Mr. Schuster? Mrs. Dixon?
Present.
5 present, 4 ayes.
We'll start with budget and finance. Do we have any presentations, Dr. Feynman, that we would like to put forward first?
We have Mike Finn. Would you like to introduce us?
Yes, here this evening is Mike Finn from Financial Solutions and also Brian Kizlansky to speak to you about a couple items on the agenda. We want to jump ahead. The first one is the PlanCon K submissions.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. In July, we came to the board and they passed a resolution for us to go through all of the PlanCon Ks for reimbursement that were not filed yet with PDE. We got a list from PDE. We went through and I delivered to Pat this afternoon. It's about 10 inches thick. We got them all done. So we have 8 submissions. They're about inch thick each. They need to be adopted by the board by resolution. So that would be in front of you at your September 3rd meeting for your consideration. Once, if the board adopts those, we would then file with PDE those 8 separate plan times, and I can go through them. They're for the 15As, the 16As, the 16Bs, the 17Bs, the 17Cs, the 17Ds, the 17Es, and the 18As. If you'd like to know what each of them did, I can go through that as well, but they're in those PlanCon packets. As soon as the board adopts that, we'll file it electronically with PDE, and about a month after that, we'll get the actual reimbursement percentages, and then you'll start receiving the reimbursement and any backdated reimbursement that you're owed on those issues. So we just wanted to give you an update that it's all been completed within the last 30 days. So it's pretty straightforward. The board just needs to adopt it, and then we'll file it electronically with PDE. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And as Mike mentioned, it's quite a lot of paper, so what I would plan on doing, instead of sending home the board packet, I can upload it to a shared Google Drive to be reviewed if you like.
Do you want me to go through the second one?
Yeah.
The second one, we have tonight Brian Kuznick from Seasley and Financial Solutions from RBC Capital Markets District's underwriter. I have 2 sets of pages, and I'm going to start with the first, which is a 1-page summary. Interest rates, I don't know how much you've been following interest rate movements, but since the beginning of August, with the potential trade war escalation, as well as the global recession, a lot of European countries are in the recession in their cycle. We are not, the U.S. is not as of yet. However, that directly affects our interest rate because big buyers come in and flood our market. They buy U.S. Treasuries, which drives rates down. More supply that, or more demand that comes in drives rates down. If you look at the top chart is the tax-exempt 10-year fixed rates. As you can see, we're all the way on the right. That was as of Friday. We're down at almost the bottom over the since 2000. And the bottom chart is the rates from 2000 to Friday, and we are about 10 basis points off the bottom since then. So due to this drop in rates, there is a current market opportunity to advance refund a portion of your outstanding 2011 C bonds from a higher interest rate to a lower interest rate. We would not be extending the term. We would be taking savings. It comes out to approximately, if you look at page 3 on the stapled packet, I apologize, it's approximately between $88,000 and $90,000 per year, every year over the life of the bond. So fiscal year 20 of the 31, that's when the bonds mature. So this is net of all estimated fees and expenses with the issue. Again, it's a simple high to low refinancing. At some point, it doesn't make sense of talking with the working group as well as the recovery coordinator and the administration. We're looking at not executing this unless we get at least a net savings over the life of at least $1 million. If the board adopts a parameters resolution, that gives us the authorization to go into the market, refinance those bonds. These are fixed rate bonds. As soon as we price, those rates are locked in for the duration. It doesn't matter where interest rates go, they are locked in, it's a fixed rate, we know exactly what it is. And if you decide to move forward with this, we'd also then file the Plan Con K shortly thereafter, after that's closed. That's included in everything, there's gonna be no additional fees for that. Again, we're not extending the term, it just happens to be because rates have dropped so dramatically that this is an opportunity. We moved pretty quickly on this, again, from the beginning of August till potentially adoption for consideration at the September 3rd meeting. And then we look to lock in Henry somewhere the second week of September. So you'll know your exact savings. And again, we're shooting for something at least north of $1 million net to the district. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So that's over the course of how many years?
And it goes from fiscal years, if you look at, so it's 2020 through 2031. That's the current term of those outstanding bonds. So that's just the net effect.
Okay, when I'm looking at the 10-year, the rates, you have it as AAA rating, what are we right now?
You weren't ever, so these would be taxable bonds, so you want to look at the bottom. Every rating category that you go down from AAA, so the 10-year US Treasury is
This is
basically.
just an overall picture.
This is an overall
Because we're
picture
not-
to show,
we
no,
have AAA rating.
no, that is correct. When you get into bonds, the lower the rated that you go down the rungs, the bigger spread to that AAA rate that you price at. So, for instance, if you were a AA rated credit, you'd price at 15 basis points over the AAA curve. If you were a AA minus, you'd price 20 to 25 basis points over the AAA curve, A plus, more than that, et cetera. The school district's in a little bit of a unique situation. It does not have an underlying rating. It's got the A2 enhanced state intercept rating, and then we would get bond insurance on top of that for the most protection. It makes the most economic sense to do that, and all of that is in these numbers. So we did take that into account with the net savings.
Okay. Have we ever refinanced or remarketed this series prior to this? I know we've done some in the past, but have we ever remarketed or refinanced this?
Yes, this particular issue was used for the partial current refunding of the 2001 notes back in 2011. So this would be your second refunding of this particular issue.
We need money.
And the other thing I handed out tonight, just so you had it, is the full copy of the resolution that you have next Tuesday for approval. And it does really, in a much longer fashion, everything that Mike just said. It went through and authorizes the refunding of those bonds, just for debt service savings, authorizing all the execution of all the documents that we have to go from now to closing. It does everything that state law requires us to do as part of this process, as you've seen before. The one thing I do have to do, and I'll put it in, I'll send it to the paper tomorrow, there's a pre-enactment ad that goes in the paper. Has to be in the paper not less than 3 days in advance of your meeting. So we wanted to have the meeting tonight, make sure you're okay with us moving ahead. We'll send that to the paper, it'll probably be in Wednesday or Thursday, and then we'll be all set for Tuesday night for that resolution.
Pat, when I'm looking at the fee schedule, estimated cost of issuance is $154,000, that's going to Mr. Benz.
No, that's a good question. The 100, we can go through, that's the last page, so I can run through everything for you. The estimated cost of issuance, that includes our fee, bond counsel's fee, underwriter's counsel's fee, the printer, the rating agency, buying the QSIPs, the escrow agent, the paying agent. Underwriter's counsel, that's what that encompasses everything. The underwriter's discount is what you pay, and that's actually below market rate to Henry's firm. And then really what the largest cost, and again, this is just a fact of where we are in the recovery process, is there's 2 bond insurers left on the market. It's Build America Mutual and Assured Guarantee. We go out get competitive quotes from either of them, whatever's lowest, that's what we take. I'm just estimating here, but that's really the vast majority of those fees. As you can see, obviously. But that cost of issuance includes a ton, and I can absolutely provide Pat a breakdown of that.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I can absolutely provide a breakdown, I apologize.
We can, it's estimated to be around what it was for some of our prior remarketing, so we can have that breakdown for you.
I can do that tomorrow morning, Pat, for you.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, that cost of issuance number of 154, that includes a whole host of people.
And very similar to prior bond issues in terms of all the group of people that are needed to get it done.
And again, those savings numbers incorporates all of that, so if the board decides to adopt a resolution and we look to the recovery coordinator and the administration to not execute until we reach that number that everyone's comfortable, you're not out of pocket those expenses, except for, because we've gone through the rating process, it's 50% of the rating, which is probably $7,500, give or take, if this never goes. They're the only ones that look to recoup any type of fees.
Yeah, and the advertising.
In the advertising, excuse me, which is,
It's probably about 2,002, so 2 ads.
but everything else is contingent upon this actually going, so it's not, the authorization doesn't commit you to paying this until you actually realize that savings.
And as we've discussed on prior issues as well, the resolution, part of the reason to do it in advance of pricing is to get the state process going. It's a 30-day process with the state, so you want to start that process moving so that you can react quickly if the market seems to be moving and you're at the level that you want, you can get in and do it quickly. So typically on refundings, that's the approach we take, so you have a little bit more flexibility. If the market was good, but you had to wait 3 weeks for the next board meeting, things could move in that interim, so.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you had about that, or if you want to ask anybody any questions.
So we're looking to have a resolution for both of these actions, correct?
The plan con, yes, and Tuesday, if the board's okay with that.
And I did, the large packet is the resolution on the bond issue side, there'll be a separate one for the plan.
You okay to move the resolution? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
See you on
much.
Tuesday. Have a nice weekend.
I'll give you that.
Enjoy your holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Popo, there's no more presentations?
Okay.
Mr. Popo, you can
Under
start.
budget finance, we'll have a resolution to approve the bill list, a resolution to approve exceptional bill, approve the exception bill list, a resolution to approve delinquent tax reports, a resolution to approve the treasurer's report, a resolution to approve repository sales, a resolution to approve budget transfers, and it was just brought up tonight, a resolution to approve Plan Con K submissions. And a discussion of possible resolution, again, we just talked about advance refunding of 2011 C bonds. That's it for budget finance.
Anybody have any questions then?
Just while we're on budget and finance, where do we stand with the BPM payroll prep tax conversion? I'm just a little worried that the clock is ticking if we do need to go to referendum, and I don't want to wind up with pressure on us to make a decision, not having had the conversation. And perhaps it requires its own budget and finance committee meeting, but I just wanted to get that conversation started.
Are you looking at me?
I'm looking at all of you.
We're all looking
at all.
So what I can tell you is it's untested whether or not we need the referendum. So there are some people who will argue, this is all argument, that we do not need a referendum if we are going to move forward with this. And there are some people who are strict constructionists who believe absolutely you need the referendum. Those people who believe you don't need a referendum will say that this law was enacted after Act 1, which says you need the referendum, and if they believed Act One was required, they would have said in that law that the mechanisms of Act One apply, and they never said that. So, to give you a typical lawyer answer, it's undecided, and it will likely be, if we are to proceed down this path, we will have to make the decision of whether we will do a referendum or not, and I believe there will be litigation on either side of that decision, based on my understanding and conversations that I've had with a lot of stakeholders in this issue.
You believe there will be litigation if we decide to go to referendum?
It's possible there are people who want this desperately and who believe that a referendum will stall or stop the process, and they may challenge the use of the referendum. So there could be some tax people, some citizens who will be put together as a class action group of people to file an injunction against the referendum. It's possible. I'm not saying that it will definitely happen, but there's likely litigation, and I can tell you it's a case of first impression. There's no other district in the state that has ever done this, and there really is no pure guidance. When I first looked at the issue, and I, looking at this as a strict constructionist, said, well, Act One says when you raise taxes or when you change your taxes, you have to have a referendum. So I looked at it that way. But I've since engaged in a great number of conversations with many attorneys who have studied this almost for a living and have made very convincing arguments that that's not necessarily the case. So,
Have any of those arguments convinced PDE to?
no,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, just to go on record, PD stands firmly behind the need to
Right.
have a referendum,
Right.
so.
Right.
I just checked again today.
Yes, and our firm's initial, when you asked us to look into this, we agreed with PDE, and we haven't made a decision other than that since then, but I have exposed myself to a lot of the legal theories on the other side of the table, and they're legitimate theories, and they're colorable claims.
Right.
So that's why I say PD, I think whichever, if we should go there, or even consider going there and putting a referendum out, I believe there will be litigation on either side.
Do you think we need to have a discussion about this?
I would think that it would make
Like a
sense to have a
detailed
financial
discussion.
committee meeting and have some detailed discussions. It seems to me.
I've been working through this, building on a lot of information I've been given, working with Pat a little bit, trying to just wrap my own head around all of this. I have good questions, reasonable answers to a lot of them, but I'm still not getting the definitive reason why this is a great idea for the Scranton School District at this moment.
And that, frankly, it is the bigger question than how do we do it? The first question to me that you would have to answer is, why do we do it? And that's the bigger question. Once you have that question, if the answer is, we do it because we're going to be helping ourselves financially, taking a burden off our taxpayers and still profiting as a district, then the next question is, how do we do it? But I think we have to get that first hurdle of why do we do it out of our system and figure that out first.
I'm not crazy, but I'm not really getting that answer. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of facts
I
out
mean,
there.
things, I could be missing something, but
I mean, the best answer we've received so far is, well, once you get your rate, you get one more crack at it the second year. And then you're set with that rate, and that's that, your tax rate. So, and that has to be revenue neutral. So, I don't know what that gets us. I mean,
And
if there is a lot of commercial growth, and a sudden, hiring, if people are suddenly hiring by the droves, that will drive in some more money. But if that happens, that doesn't mean we wouldn't be getting the money anyway through the other system. Because then the property values would go up, and then the occupational taxes and the other issues will all go up with it. So, you know,
And
I'm
then
not sure that I understand the value.
I don't want to have too much of a conversation without everyone having had the benefit of reviewing all of this. And Pat and I have kind of been assembling a lot of information here. But based on the chart Pat provided, the compound annual growth rate of the earned income tax over the last, how many years is this?
7.
7, is 2.46%. Compared to the business privilege mercantile tax, that's 5.37%. So I'm not sure that the argument about wage growth is there.
It's beneficial to the city, it's not, I don't buy it, I can't see. I think it's a big deal.
And I mean, I don't want to not be a good partner, we need to keep working on that at every turn, but we also have to
We need
be
partners that will help us.
responsible.
That hurts.
I think one of the misnomers was the fact that BP and mercantile tax hadn't increased. We didn't see historical trends of increasing. That's not true. Those charts are clear that we have seen those increases. And I think that's something that we heard early in this conversation. So,
And Pat, I think in one of our correspondences, you had said that you were gonna see if these numbers jived with the city's
Yes, and we had
approach
a
to this.
meeting,
Did that
we had a
happen?
meeting today, we talked about some of the questions that have arose. Mr. Bolzoni and I plan on meeting this week to kind of, one, scrub some of that raw data that we do have to determine if we were to proceed, what our rate would be, but also to compare exactly, you know, if there are trends that the city's experience is similar to ours.
So I guess the next question is, who would be best to present this and get some of this, because we are kind of getting varying information
Yeah.
back and forth, so nothing has been really set in stone. Who would it be, like, if we're gonna communicate with the city, would it be good for Mr. Bolzoni or someone from the city to come over and?
I'm not exactly sure at this point.
yeah. The problem is, I think we need a more neutral person giving us additional
That's
information.
where I'm going here. Who is,
And, I mean, Pittsburgh continues to be used
That's where
as
I'm going.
the example here. Is there, I mean, there are certainly similarities, but there are also tremendous differences between those two cities, these two cities. But is there anyone involved in that process who might be neutral to what we have going on here, but have experience with it?
I'm sure there are people in the administration who would talk of it, but I have to tell you, I think Pittsburgh, from my personal knowledge of Pittsburgh, that has grown and developed that we have not had the good fortune to see yet.
Right.
So I think their numbers are gonna be very skewed, in my personal opinion, but so I think if we bring them in, once again, we're comparing apples and oranges. I think we just have to look at our numbers and see what our mercantile tax has done, see what the growth rate has been and what that will do for us, and make our own decision, I think. I don't know that we need to complicate it as much as we are doing. I think we're letting people who have.
And I spent most of today really complicating this issue.
But-
I'm sorry we didn't
No,
come
it's
earlier.
interesting, when you start talking to the advocates of this,
Yeah.
they draw you in.
Yeah.
And they make you think, well, why are you missing out on this opportunity? But when you drill down, I haven't heard what opportunity we're missing out on. I just haven't heard it from anyone.
It's
I feel
all,
like
you know,
some
so
of our-
much, excuse me, but so much of this is depending on optimism and the fact that we're going to see this growth.
It all is.
And based on what? Based
It all
on what
is.
is this growth going to happen?
I mean, I would love to see it happen.
And if the growth declines, so does our money.
Yes, indeed.
And we
That's-
can't ever change that number again after the second round.
I think it's a
Big gamble.
big gamble at this time.
Is the business privilege rate also locked in?
It's 4%, it's 4%, right?
That's, I mean, we have two, the business privilege mercantile is two separate rates, and I believe it is locked in with Act One.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
so.
Which is the act that
Right.
says you would have to follow some rules for conversion.
Right.
The problem, I mean, I can check in Harrisburg, which I will do one more time tomorrow, but the problem is there isn't a school district that has adopted this. So we don't have a model there at all.
And we did find out Pittsburgh did not.
They did not.
I did not.
I mean, I will check, but aside from the ruling regarding referendum, I don't think there's any.
And so I feel like maybe we had a couple premature discussions about this that kind of, I felt skewed us against it, but I really haven't heard a neutral argument, so I don't know. When it comes to our current the business privilege, did we grow, or did our collection rates grow?
I don't have that answer. I'm not exactly sure if it's a more efficient collection of delinquencies, or
So
if it's.
we targeted that over the last couple of years, so
Right.
when we're seeing that growth, we're talking about a
We-
better tax collection rate, I think, rather than.
Yeah, I mean, and
actual
I've
growth.
excluded, just for comparison's sake, I've excluded any delinquencies that we've collected with eCollect. So this is anything remitted to us from the single tax office.
Okay, so you did that without any of those?
Yeah.
And there weren't,
So,
there is money there.
so there is money, there is a good.
Can I just ask?
There would be.
But I think everybody,
Everybody has made the statement because nobody has gone this route before. Has there been other districts that have looked at it and just said no, or is this jump on for the ride right now with the city and see what's going on?
The only district I'm aware of is Pittsburgh,
Right,
and they chose not to go.
not to, right.
That's the only one I'm aware
I
of.
haven't heard of any, I can't say for certain, but I don't believe there was any other.
So we really don't know if they actually, any other school district looked into it.
We don't think so, but.
My knowledge from
Okay.
PD is no,
But
no one else.
Director Norton, I would say that even if they had, it's not going to give us our answer. Because we have to know how we're going to grow in order for that. And who said it? Somebody said this is based on a very optimistic view.
Right.
And if that doesn't hold true, then it's not going to help us. It's not
No,
gonna-
I was just curious if somebody,
Yeah.
if other districts looked at it
Sure.
and more or less had the same conclusion that we're looking at now.
Just
You know, whether
Pittsburgh.
to jump,
Yeah.
whether to make the move or not.
What they saw as the cons, so
Right,
why they
right.
decided against it, yes.
I mean, I think when you look at the pros and cons of this, I think from our perspective, there's a great deal of confusion. The pros are not that strong. The only pro that I did see that does seem like a good one is that this would impact the business, the for-profit businesses in nonprofit entities. So, for example, the food vendors that are at the university. But if this would impact them, why could they not have the business privilege tax levied on them?
That's a very good question, and we, as part of our plan, our five-year plan, is to look into that and to go forward with that, and that is part of it's part of our intention, and I know that, actually, one of the things I talked about with, my partner that was here today, we have, the next taxing year is it's already done, so we have this year to make that decision of how we're going to look into, seeing if we can get the money from some of those people. And I know that's part of the recovery plan, so that's something we're going to be doing. I can't tell you we'll be successful, I can't tell you we won't be, but it is something we need to look into, for sure.
But are we thinking we need a budget and finance committee meeting to really weigh these pros and cons with everybody having the time to assess this information and truly make this decision once and for all?
I think it would be better to have the conversation than not to
Yeah.
have the conversation.
And the other conversation that Mr. Audi and I had in our back and forth about all of this is, I think there are several of us who could be construed as having a conflict of interest here. And I think we need to be very cautious about that. Because it's my understanding that this would impact property owners if they had I'm assuming if they had anyone managing their properties or working on their properties. I, of course, own my own business, so I think there are a lot of us who fall into a potential issue
Right,
here.
and we need to be cognizant of that and transparent. It's a good point.
So I guess the next.
We may not have anyone to vote.
Right.
My mind is racing there,
I
trying to
just said
think
it.
who's gonna vote.
Right,
The elephant in the room.
right.
It's-
I mean, do you want to describe do you want to talk a little
Well-
bit about the answer you gave?
Well, the
me,
answer.
to pursue this
Yeah,
from an ethics standpoint?
you know, when you look at conflict of interest, you generally look at how it affects the class as a whole. I know that the Ethics Commission, when they make rulings on whether or not somebody has a conflict of interest, they'll say if it's a party of one and it's going to affect you or your family directly and solely, then there's definitely a conflict of interest. If it's a class of people that you happen to be part of, then you need to stay out of the deliberations. And I'm talking, you know, this is a typical answer for whether or not a board member could sit on a negotiation team if they have a family member who stands to gain in the negotiations. The answer is, no, they can't sit on the team, they can't be involved in the negotiations of it, but they can place their vote as a board member. And while we didn't get a that's the best analogy I could bring to this. And I suggested when Director Gilmartin raised the issue to me is that we can also get an ethics ruling, we have enough time to ask the Ethics Commission, how would we handle such a potential conflict? I suspect their answer would be what I just said. But it would never hurt to get a specific opinion from them if we are going to have to go down that path and take that vote. So that was our conversation. Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So, if we are talking about a budget and finance meeting, do we have enough facts to go forward with the meeting at this time? Or do we need to compile more facts?
I think
What's the timeline?
I think what needs to be done is, as I mentioned earlier, is for us to determine what the rate would be, to understand what the taxable base would be if we were to pursue it. That would be, I think, step number one. We plan on working on that this week. The timeline is short. If you follow the Act 1 timeline, I believe September 6th is the deadline. Now, that says to propose a tax increase above the Act 1 index. I'm not sure where it falls into the changing of a tax, but I'd say you would try to hit that September 6th deadline as it's on our timeline for a calendar year school district.
And according to PTE, that they would expect us to do that. In their opinion, they've written, I think, a legal opinion.
They did, they did.
And, you know,
Pat, when you get everything that you need, that you feel comfortable that we can have the meeting, give me a call and we'll have the meeting.
All right, I'll contact Mr. Bolzoni tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And I'll try to get any additional information. We can perhaps next Tuesday. Is that, yeah,
I
that's
would,
before the 6th.
I would think if we had it,
Before?
be a budget and finance committee meeting before the voting meeting on Tuesday night.
We'll shoot for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then you'll let Director Popel know, and then
So,
he'll let me know. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I had left your section to me.
There's nothing in community relations, education, Director Norton.
Resolution approved permission to attend consent, discuss enrollment update, and what else do we have? That's it.
Just on the enrollment, I believe you all received enrollment in your packet. As of today at approximately 2:45, our enrollment was at 9,762. And I will again update you on Tuesday of next week of where we're at that point. The lines have been long, so again, we will have an increase next week.
Yeah. Okay, operations, well, Directors Lush and Borthwick aren't here, so who agrees, me?
You.
Okay. A possible resolution and discussion about the Cooper's parking lease.
Yes, I'll speak to that.
That's fine.
We have something for your consideration. The Cooper's agreement last year, Mr. Paul Cooper came back and is not interested in providing us with 50 spaces. So last year, the agreement was 50 spaces at a rate of $26.50 per space. He came back this year. He is only willing to offer us 30 parking spaces at a rate of $35. So bottom line is less spaces, more expensive. So we will have a resolution for the board next week to see if he will accept that. He will not. We have tried to negotiate, but that's the most amount of spaces he will use.
So it was 30 spaces for $35?
30 spaces for $35 moving forward. Last year was 50 spaces at $26.50.
Are we using all those spaces per day?
Yes, we are.
We used all 50.
Yes, we use all of them. So, I'm sorry, what were you saying? Yeah, that was the next one. Just reading the list. Yes, so, any questions on that? That's where we're
Is
at.
there an alternative?
That leads me right into the next, if you want me to go with the discussion. So we're looking at some alternatives. I don't have an absolute alternative right now. The medical college we're in discussions with to see if they have any extra spaces. They will not give us a commitment until they see what their student population is and who needs spaces. So they told us at least a couple weeks before that they would even turn around and have an answer for us. Today, we sent an individual to Mercy Hospital to see if they had the parking garage. Maybe we can use the top floor. I have to give Mr. Doherty that credit. It was his idea. I believe that we did not get an answer. Yeah, we did not get an answer on that, but they said that they would consider it. We did offer them $25 per space on what they could give us. So we're looking to recoup the 20 that we're missing. And again, that is the spaces that we have, and again, that will lead me right into the Bethel. Bethel, we have the same agreement as last year, as this year. They accepted that. That's 25 spots at $25 per spot. And we do have that signed agreement.
How many spaces are available at the Mercy parking garage?
I really don't know. I mean, we went fishing. We talked about it in a meeting today, and then, Jeff ran up there and he talked to someone at the hospital who seemed like they were interested in talking about it. They said they would communicate with us tomorrow. They had to check with some other people. It's a big parking garage.
I'm just checking to see, just for my own knowledge, if there's like an overabundance of space there.
I don't know. I know they have 2 parking garages there, but we kicked around in the meeting that if we use the roof, if we got to the one that's uncovered, that's more than likely the one that's never going to have cars parking on it where visitors go there. So that could be an option for us. And we'll certainly report back once we get some definitive information.
So the only thing that I can tell you right now that we have is the 25 at Bethel, because that's, if the board agrees to continue that agreement, that's the same as last year. So you'll need to consider Cooper's, you'll need to consider the less amount of spaces that they're offering, the increase in price, so you'll have to make a decision next week on that. And then the other is, Mercy Hospital, I'm hoping to have some information on that. we will not have any information from what we gathered on the medical college for next week. Mr. Haney at Northeast Intermediate is aware, and he was informing his staff. So they will have to be parking on the streets until we find out a solution.
I hate to say it go as far as Nahog, but I don't know what's available up there.
I believe that, in speaking with Mr. Heath.
I know, it's a distance.
Right.
They are.
Yeah, I believe in.
It's not the walk
speaking-
down, it's the walk up.
We
Just
need
put
a
it out
shuttle.
there.
Yeah.
Uphill both ways.
Exactly.
Could use the parking lot of Lincoln Jackson,
Yeah.
walk over, sort of smile and
I've been going to the shuttle business.
a half. Something fishy about this Cooper deal. It's a lot of class. That's it, I'm done with that.
As far as Coopers though, I have two questions. Were our payments up to date with Coopers?
Yes.
And it's my understanding that this is kind of a recent change, and that when I pulled the lease out, there were a lot of stipulations around the termination and notification, and was all of that accurate? I was thinking it might have been the same as the Bethel, but this language is different, and I did not bring, that's the one piece of information I didn't bring with me tonight, sorry.
Don't get crabby about it.
I could have tried.
The reasoning that we were given, just so you know, was that he had an increase in business during that time during the day. It wasn't any complaints about that I received, that's all I can say. I'm only a week on the job, so. I'm only gonna give you the facts that what was said, when I asked why, in the operations department, the answer to the question was, the answer they received, and I was speaking to the clerk for operations. The answer she received was that during that time, they have seen an increase in business, and they didn't want that affected. So that is why. No complaints. I said, did we do something wrong? Could somebody tell us? And no.
Which, I mean, that certainly makes sense in terms of the number of spaces. The cost, however.
Is,
Yeah.
especially during this time, that was interesting. So, I don't want to speak for anybody. It seems as though maybe they don't want us as tenants anymore.
Hard to believe.
So, but again, they're still offering us 30 spots, which at this point is helpful, so.
Okay. We covered everything else except the department update.
Mr. Doherty's going to provide that for the board.
Thank you for having me here this evening. Stuff for you.
Thank you.
I had a couple things. The first information, or the first item that's on top is, there was a project going on since actually, that I think was approved last spring, to make the entrance at Northeast on East Gibson Street, and that was previously voted and approved. However, when they were there doing the work, they determined that there is significant structural deficits outside of that entrance. The contractor halted. There are pictures that are attached to this proposal, and Colombo, the engineer on the project, stipulated that he thinks the entranceway that they're making the main entrance on East Gibson, and the one right below that goes directly into the cafeteria, that they're structurally unsound and should not be used. We currently have them shut down, and this, what Colombo provided to us was a proposal to do a study of the structural deficits. They think there's significant work that needs to be done on those entranceways at Northeast. In the interim, we've moved the main entrance back to where it always was on the other side, so we don't have an issue getting into the building and opening the school. But the long-term viability of that building, we see the plan to address the structural deficits at these entrances. And again, there are pictures provided with that. So that'll be for your consideration this week. Any questions with that? The next thing at Northeast is during a routine inspection, Luzic, as they come in and do air quality inspections, and they access a building in, or I'm sorry, a room in the basement of Northeast that was found to have some asbestos in there, so probably since the building opened. The room is sealed. After they went in, obviously, when they came out, they resealed that door. They did asbestos testing in the building on 2 separate occasions. There's none detected anywhere throughout the building, but certainly a remediation plan is going to have to be addressed for that area at some point. And when quotes are received for that, we'll pass that along to the board, but there are certainly no air quality issues at the moment. They see took care of the parking, so I'll update you on West Intermediate. Mesco was doing window installation at West Intermediate on the big windows in front. There were 16 sections. They ran into significant delays on getting product. They were supposed to have it totally completed by August 21st. Their contract stipulated that with us. Right now, there's only 6 out of 16 done because they're saying they can't get the product. They wanted to start coming in on the weekends, and quite frankly, I brought my concern to Dr. Feiner and Missy about that because that's not something we're going to pay overtime for. I said if they want to, work on a financial agreement for that, that's something we can discuss because I don't think we should have to accrue overtime because they have product issues. So we're still kind of formulating a plan to try to get those windows completed, whether they have to come in after students are out, because when they take those huge window panes out in front, obviously we have to have the whole balcony evacuated. So that's a significant, we'd be displacing 8 or 9 classrooms at that point. So we're in, discussion with them on how to move ahead with that. But that project right now, they have 6 out of 16.
Do they have a definite as to when they're gonna get their product in?
No, they initially contacted me last May and wanted to start on the project last May, and I said, absolutely not, we're gonna wait until June. And they said, great, we'll be there on June 21st. And June 21st came and went, and we kept contacting Mesco over and over, and they said, yep, and it got to the point that in July it became, we'll be there on Monday. Monday would come and go, we'll be there on Monday. And it just got to the point that they didn't start this until, yeah, I want to say around,
So
maybe 10 days ago.
But basically, they
They
don't
don't
have
have a product, right? They have 6 of the sections done, and at the end of the day today, the guys were packing up and said, we're out of product.
Okay, so next summer.
Next summer, or any kind of break, or any kind of, they initially said they don't need to access the buildings. So I said, great, do it on the weekends. It's a matter of getting, the alarm turned off, we'll turn the alarm off. And then we'll set the alarm when we're done again at the end of that. But, I made my point that we're not gonna pay overtime, to take care of that. That's just not what we're gonna do.
It definitely sounds like until they get the product, you gotta be on hold anyways.
I agree. There's a significant done, but I don't also want them coming just doing 2 at a time. And once they have their product, they should come and try it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where we're going with the whole business.
Absolutely. I will gladly communicate that to them, that we can put this whole project on hold, but that's the way, until next summer. And that's certainly.
What's the holdup with the product?
They just said they cannot get the material in from whoever their supplier is. Those windows are,
They're enormous.
until you see them up close, they're enormous. It's, you don't truly, certainly I don't truly appreciate it. I was there a lot of years, and until you see it down in the ground, they're massive.
That's where they got replaced.
Sorry?
What was the original reason they're being replaced?
Totally broke down, like they profusely. Yeah, there was significant issues with them. 2 of them, one of the sections, they're replacing 15 to 16 sections, I should say. One of the sections was replaced, I want to say about a year and a half ago, because it totally broke down. It was a safety issue, actually got to the point was it going to fall out?
Right.
And then that was addressed immediately. And the other sections, they're just the original ones. So. I say all the time, that's the new school. Willard, there's been a drainage issue in part of the building at Willard in the basement, and that's been an ongoing discussion that myself and Jeff have been having with our engineers, with Hunt Engineers. And up to this point, they're not really producing a good plan. So Jeff came up with a suggestion to Hunt that would it help if we brought in someone to scope actually the pipe, drain pipe, because they think it's the drain pipe coming off the roof, and scope it and see if there's a clog, and maybe we can try to clear the clog. And certainly that would be a much cheap, if that works, that would be a much cheaper remedy than, they were talking about pulling permits with the city and then coming back and pitching. Let's get a contractor in to start tearing up part of the wall, tearing up part of the parking lot, or part of the playground there. So I think that we're probably better served going the other avenue, getting some quotes to have somebody come in and scope it and see exactly what we can do. It's been an ongoing issue. from my understanding.
Is that just runoff going through these pipes, or is it actually attached to the sewer system?
I think at some point it's attached to the sewer. Can you
It is,
confirm that?
yeah. We have 9 roof drains in the building. They all drain down and attach to the sewer under grade. So eventually it's
Have
going
you
to be
gotten
addressed.
any hassle from the city about removing the?
Well, they're saying if we do work to it, then we can tie it back in.
Well, that's where I'm at with that. If you're gonna go ahead and do that, then you may be required to go ahead and take it off the curbs.
That's correct. That's what they're conveying, and that's what they were researching that, and they were saying that this is gonna become a huge project. So if we could avoid the cost of this and see exactly what the issue is, because I'm not comfortable with them coming back and pitching a huge project, if this is something that we could remedy pretty, if it's a blockage somewhere, even if it's underneath the property.
No, I understand what you're
40
looking
feet from the
Can't
building.
they get something like a roto-rooter outfit or something like that? I mean,
That's exactly what we were talking about.
We need the root cause.
That's correct. And I don't want to go on, I don't want
it'd
exploratory surgery to figure out what's
be,
going
wouldn't
on.
it be better just to have somebody to come in and give that a try? I mean, if it costs a couple $100 and it
That's
doesn't
exactly what
work,
we'd like to
okay.
do. That's exactly what we'd like to do. Put a scope down there, see if they
Drain
find a
hole.
blockage, and if the little drain hole will shake it in from the top.
Yeah,
and
with
the
hot
drain.
water.
And if it clears, it clears. But that's the avenue we'd like to go with that.
That makes sense.
The Whittier project, the playground, I've been over there multiple times over the course of summer. It looks tremendous. There's been some heavy rain since they completed, and it looks real good. I mean, it looks to be draining the way it was designed. It looks real good. The mulch is not running. I mean, there's probably a 12-inch mulch base there. They did a very nice job on that project. It looks really good. Scranton High sprinkler assessment update, K&K. It was directed to assess the sprinkler system there after there were some deficiencies. They have just recently finished their work, so we're waiting for them to now provide that final report. As soon as we get that final report.
Did it seem like it was isolated to the pool area?
Much of the corrosion is near that pool area, yes. And I don't want to say all of it, but the vast majority of it is in that pool area.
It's the chlorine.
It is. When you see the pipes, and you really don't have to be an engineer, when you see the pipes to say it's going outside in, not inside out, you can tell something's definitely working on that. But they will have a full report for us. I think it'd be pretty extensive, and then, we'll certainly present that, and I'm assuming that we'll then, address that, and put bids out for that once we get that. The water heater that you approved at the last board meeting, we moved ahead with that. I think installation started on that, correct? We did our piece.
We did our piece. They're starting to order the heater from Walker. Several we got into about 6 weeks out before it gets to phase.
So that's moving as we expected.
It's 6 weeks out. It's gonna take about a day to install.
Something like, yeah, as long as our piece was done. Like, there were some things we had to do that were in that bid that you got at the last meeting, and our piece is being taken care of. So when that comes in, soon as it should be ready to go. Calico should be installed. The last thing on my agenda item is Armstrong, and that's eaten up a lot of time this summer. And I think in the last week to 10 days, we finally made some significant headway. I got to give, there's been a lot of people that are working up there, but I got to give a lot of credit to Scranton Electric, who has really stepped up, and they brought in some of their own consultants to take a look at what exactly is going on. I'd be lying to you if I understood the science behind the whole thing, because they're talking about dew points and they're talking about chiller temperature and what the lines are running to it. And I sit there in a lot of these meetings and I smile and I nod and I take good notes. But it's, you know, we've been at some meetings where I think a lot has gotten accomplished. You know, getting Dr. Finan involved in that project was very helpful because some decisions were made that, hey, you know what, if the flooring is gonna be an issue and it's gonna be retaining moisture, pull the flooring. And that project's ongoing. The floors are, every classroom's gonna have a new vinyl floor by the end of the day today. I just got an update, or Jeff just got an update, the last 2 rooms are being done right now. It looks beautiful. But it was obvious that there was a lot of moisture being retained in the carpets. Since that carpet has been full, and even in the dehumidifiers, the amount of water that's being going in the dehumidifiers is down significantly. Now that being said, that's a short-term fix. We wouldn't be doing ourselves any favors unless we look at upgrading the HVAC system at some point in that building. You know, as I look ahead, you always want to look at, you know, the long-term viability of that building. We're looking probably another 30, 40, 50 years. And at some point, we have to make a plan for new units. And why not? I mean, the discussion needs to start, it needs to happen, because we don't ever want to walk this road again. Getting the carpets out of there would be big improvement. You know, we've had so many air quality tests up there this summer, they just keep happening. The last thing that you got from me was, there's actually 2 emails from there. It's from an industrial hygienist, is the first one. I didn't know what that term meant until this summer. But that there's not any kind of concern, and it remains an HVAC concern due to excessive moisture in the building. And then the second one is from Harold Newell, who is one of the owners of Scranton Electric, and he says there's no reason that this would affect the start of school. So we have our experts that are, you know, taking the building in the right direction, and, you know, I think things are really going positive there. We were on site up there today, and the floors are great. The floors are great, the humidity's down. But to think that this couldn't potentially be a humidity issue again next spring, we'd be kidding ourselves. So I think that we're going to need a long-term plan.
Some of the other things we're looking into that was some of the work that was done recently, correct?
Yes. I mean, I gotta be very cautious of what I say again, because I'm not an engineer. But I think it would be in our best interest to have an independent engineer evaluate some of that.
About South, there was a little bit of discussion about the boiler at South.
The boiler at South right now was also part of that energy savings project from a couple of years ago. Right now it is not functioning, and we have to map out a plan for November. I don't want to say that got put on the back burner, but it certainly did not warrant the attention that Armstrong needed this summer, because we have a couple months to play with. We filed warranty claims with that. They're not honoring warranty. I'll say
So
that.
that was filed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, I had multiple discussions with the person that oversaw that project. Mr. Audi contacted them directly also. You know, I think that needs to move in a different direction. We're gonna need a short-term plan to make sure that's working. And we're gonna have to certainly make sure it gets repaired. Well, I dispute what they're saying. I mean, I have to be honest. But I think you need a third party in here to evaluate on that.
And this might not be something bringing up, but was there a boiler there that was removed
Oh, yeah.
before this one was put in?
Yeah, there's 2 brand new boilers that are in there. They're massive. It's from me to you, 8 feet tall. And that's just one, and the other one sits right next to it. They actually removed the wall, put it in, and take the old one out.
Do you believe you're gonna be getting stonewalled between now and November?
With warranty
This
claims?
Warranty claims?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, that's the impression I'm getting.
Well, the
I'm not-
only thing.
I'll say that, I'm not
If
giving
you do bring in another contractor, go ahead and fix the issue, then is that gonna cause more grief?
I'm gonna speak up that I have been in contact with the company, and we are having a meeting, and at that point, I don't think we should get into any more public conversation about it, because there's potential litigation here. And I just rather work with the company and go through that process, if it's, with all due respect.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
I'd just like to say one thing. It took a lot of man hours to make sure that we have Armstrong open for Wednesday. And I just want to thank Paul and and all the people, Carl, I know was there, Pat made all the wheels happen. Took a real team effort. I just wanted children to be able to go to their home school on the first day. And I think a lot of hard work and good people who step up and make sure it happens. So thank you for all the efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last last resolution is the backcourt hoops use of Scranton High School gym for the fall season.
Bert, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, Backcourt Hoops does their annual fall basketball tournament, volleyball tournament. They wanted to rent Scranton High's gymnasium for 3 Saturdays and 2 Sundays. And our rental fee is going to charge them for those 3 Saturdays and 2 Sundays for rental usage for Scranton.
Thank you. Director Holden.
Okay, under personnel, resolutions to approve personal report, retirement, assignments / appointments, leaves of absence, and resignations.
Okay. Director Gilmartin.
We will have a resolution to approve first read policy 004, 201, 204, 208, 209, 808, and 004 BOG0 and 004 BOG4. I do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. I do notice that one thing I noted here is not on our list here, the 609 AR2 Statement of Financial Interest, does that not apply to us? That was with the investment of district funds policy. It's on this PSBA list, but I don't see it on
ARs we
on
don't.
here.
Yeah,
So,
ARs we don't. It's just an automatic.
Okay.
We just do the policies, the
Okay.
BOGs.
The food service policy. I see that this is a recommendation from PSBA regarding provisions for alternative meals to be served to students if the student is not eligible for free and reduced price school meals, and the student's account reaches a negative balance of more than $50 in the school year. Based on revised amendments to the school code, the school entity may provide the student with an alternative meal until the balance is paid or a payment plan has been established to reduce the unpaid balance.
We participate in the community eligibility program. So all students receive a free breakfast or lunch in the Scranton School District. They do have the opportunity to purchase a la carte items with money on their account that they're able to. But there shouldn't be any student incurring any school lunch debt while we operate under a community eligibility program.
So is this an update we should be making, or no?
Do you ever see us not being CEP?
Most likely not.
Yeah. I would think unless children had to pay for their regular lunch, I don't think you need that. I think that's the result of some large, some districts that got into trouble, they had 20 to 25,000 in debt. I think that's why PSBA has
But this
that.
is not something we would need to do at this
No,
time.
at this time, I don't foresee you not being eligible.
So is that 808 you want out?
That's, unless there are other changes, there may be a couple of other things here, maybe we need to look at that more closely.
Pull that one out?
Yeah.
808?
And, yes,
Are you going to discuss the 204 on these
the No, but what, we can ask a question, you have a question about 204?
Yeah, on the, Missy, you, well, all the educators in the room, the truancy, do we still go to truancy court
Yes.
after 3 unexcused absences? Or has that changed?
It's 10, correct? Yeah, it's 10.
After 10?
We send out the first notice at 3,
Okay.
then we send out a notice at 5. Then you have to set up a truancy elimination plan meeting. So you have to get the parents in. There's a representative there from Children and Youth Services. That's all, that process is all set up through the court. And then once you meet about that plan, then any additional absences, then you can move forward.
And they still go in front of the magistrate?
Yes.
Okay. That was a question I had. Look different.
Just remembered that I wrote my notes on the original agenda, that's why I'm confused. I mean, I know I wrote something down here. Policy 004, that's in regards to the Act 55 training. And do we at some point need to look at some training about the Act 55 training? I know that seems ridiculous, but to make sure that everyone is understanding how to use the PSBA website. And like, I know I've taken some of the sessions and I'm not sure I'm doing the badge thing right. So I think at some point we need to look at all of that and make sure everybody's signed in properly and getting the credit for the courses they've been taking. And I also just wanted to take a moment to reiterate a piece of policy 004 that is not being changed here. I just think it's important to understand one of the definitions. Removal of a school director. If a school director shall neglect or refuse to attend 2 successive regular meetings of the board unless detained by sickness or prevented by necessary absence from the district, or if in attendance at any meeting, he shall neglect or refuse to act in his or her official capacity as a school director, the remaining members of the board may declare such office vacant on the affirmative vote of a majority of the remaining members of the board. I'm just wondering, Mr. Addy, could you clarify 2 successive regular meetings?
To my understanding, how I've always interpreted that, was 2 successive regularly scheduled board meetings.
Voting meetings?
Voting board meetings, advertised, scheduled board meetings. So, typically in the beginning of the school year, in the beginning of January, you will put your list out and publish that. Now, I understand there's changes sometimes, but if there's 2 successive meetings where a board member would miss those scheduled meetings, I've never seen it applied, but I know that the school code says that it's grounds for removal if there's no legitimate illness reasons for it.
But that does not include committee meetings or
Correct.
work sessions?
Absolutely correct.
So this
That
would
would be my
be
interpretation.
a person missing 2 consecutive, for example, first Monday of the month.
Correct. That would be my interpretation.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
That's the way I always understood it. And I
Yes.
saw this, I'm glad you asked that question.
As well as special meetings. Special meetings would be excluded.
Excluded, correct. Even though they may be voting meetings, and the advertisers so special. I guess the concept is, you have advance notice, and you have an obligation and responsibility to be present unless health dictates that you can't make it. Whereas a special meeting could come out when we could get in town, or, of course, committee meetings such are scheduled as we go, so.
Right.
That's the concept.
We have no course of action unless 2 regular voting meetings were to be missed. For
Yes.
reason other than excused illness.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And then the last thing is 004 BOG2, the school board director vacancy application form. This is a recommended change from PSBA, am I correct in that? But this is the one that we just have revised very recently. Do we want to make these changes, or do we want to stick with what we worked on recently?
Is it 004 BOG 4 or 2?
Yeah, theirs is 4, ours is 2.
Okay.
And I, somewhere,
Yeah, I'm looking at theirs.
yes, and I think somewhere it got changed to 2 to apply for us, but now it does say 4 on the agenda. Maybe we're proposing that our 004 BOG2 would change to 4 to be in line. Okay. There, to my way of thinking, there is some language in here. I think the part at the end of this that says, by signing this application, I am certifying that the information contained in this application is correct and to the best of my knowledge of that, and then there's this list. I think that's great. It kind of reiterates the first paragraph that we added recently to the application that's on our board docs right now. Some of these other questions are things that are in our vacancy policy for us to ask. The big change, I think, is that the PSBA policy goes to the superintendent. Our policy directs you to send this to the board secretary. Is that a change we want to make? Do we need to bring this back to the policy committee meeting? Would everyone love to have one of those?
I think we should go to the board secretary.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
Yeah,
I'm asking,
I agree.
I think
Yeah.
we should go there.
Okay. So perhaps Bert and I could work, well, who's, are you still doing policy?
Yes.
Who's doing
Yeah, it's transitioning over to Nina.
Okay. Maybe I could work with either one of you or both of you to get some elements from the PSBA recommendations infused into what we've worked on, and that's what we can bring forward next week. Is that okay with everybody? Unless, of course, you want to have a meeting.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we have a, if you don't mind, we have a transportation update
That's
for you.
where I was going
Oh, I'm
next.
sorry, I thought you were going there, sorry.
I was going over to Director
Yes.
Schuster.
For vendor relations, we will have a discussion on the transportation update.
Just wanted to give you a brief update because we will move Transfinder software. I'm happy to say that we have had customers for you. Transfinder, I'd like to expand on the software works a little bit. The eSchool SIS, that's the student information system, automatically uploads the student Transfinder software each night. And the Transfinder software determines whether or not a student is in the walking zone or the busing zone. And they're defined on the map. I review, I get a nightly thing for it, I review the registered students in the morning who are eligible for transportation or assigned walk zones. The goal is to have this totally up running and finalized middle of October. It's been going very well, but everything blew up with the new registrations and they're not in school yet, so the clerks just coming back to the school last week, we missed a lot of students. The list went out, everything looked great, and then we started finding there were some errors. So we're amending all those. And the other good news is that we're gonna have a read-on list. So you can go in, the clerks and the principal can go into, I can send them a read-on only, and they can check it daily to see the updates. And then we have the capability of emailing to principals and clerks in the school, so we don't have to keep copying this paper and wasting it. And, you know, it's just a lot of wasted paper. They're working on that. The ability is not there now. I tried. I have to make it explain. We have to go to Google or something.
Well, the email client has to be established.
Right.
Google, who's Google, so once it's established by October, I think we'll be okay with email.
Yeah, in fact, it will no longer be an issue. It won't be utilized. And then the bus, this will be generated by the software and emailed to the schools. I've been working on the system. It's very intricate, but I'm learning, and I've yesterday spent 5 hours and I didn't realize it. It just went by very quickly. I was like, wow. And I'd like to thank the people that helped me out. Bob Schock has been wonderful from PMF. Megan and her IT staff has been fantastic and help I needed. They were there. Pat Laffey and also Patrick Burke from Transpire. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Kathy.
I just want to say, the goal of fully utilizing the software as it is, I know nothing about the buses because Kathy's been a great deal of help to me, but utilizing it from October 15th on fully and go paperless, I think that's the goal.
So
Yeah,
much
because I think we're getting inundated with faxes and, you know, there's a lot of things coming through, a lot of information, so I think it's something that we'll meet by October 15th.
I would just like to thank both of you and your departments for working so hard on this. I know that it's new, and anything new is always, we get a little, but you guys worked it out. Again, Mr. Schock has been great, so thank you for working so well together. And I believe moving forward, it's gonna be a lot easier.
Oh, yes.
And this will help when we go to look at our routes for our new bidding packages. This will be instrumental in that particular process. We even talked today about Harrisburg is about at the same place we are, and we may even be able to do some co-bidding, if you will, or join together and join forces and maybe have larger companies willing to help bid on some of our packages when we're ready. So that's a goal that we have after we get through this, and thank you for your hard work because anything new is difficult, and you just were here today, the lines were out the door for registration. So just handling all the paper the old-fashioned way is just not doable anymore. I mean, we have to become more efficient with this. Yeah, they can't manage the paper and the technology and make sure everything is precise. And that's what we have to have for transportation. So we're in the process, and I'm really proud of where they are today. It's gone well.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for all their hard work, getting school open. When is it? Wednesday, our kids come?
Yes.
And hopefully we'll have a successful opening.
I think there's a wonderful spirit here, and I think you all have to be commended for how beautifully you're working together. To hear all of you thank each other back and forth, I think we all have to thank Sarah for a very positive tone to the article this morning. And I know she tells the truth, so.
I missed it.
You know, this is exciting, and I in all of our conversations this week, Mr. Laffey and I were talking about the challenges that we're facing, and I hope I won't embarrass you when I repeat your words, Pat, but he said, but who wouldn't want to be part of this kind of change?
I just think there's a synergy in Scranton School District that is going to catch on to everybody, from the top down to the kids. And I think we're going in the right direction. The board, everybody, it's just great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion.
We need a motion to adjourn. I'll move.